Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Ambassador's Lounge. And the war between Pakistan and India has been contained. The ceasefire is holding, but at the diplomatic front, saber rattling continues unabated. Immediately after ceasefire, India dispatched a huge delegation, parliamentary delegation, to more than 30 countries. The mission was to malign Pakistan and to garner support for India's point of view and India's narrative. The world listened to Indian point of view with great attention, but asked for evidence. At the multilateral front, India had hoped for complete support from the US and Russia and from Quad partners. But to its dismay, the final statement which was issued at the recently concluded Quad foreign ministers meeting, though did condemn the Pahalgam attack, made no reference of Pakistan. It did not condemn Pakistan. The SCO defense ministers meeting in China, and the final statement in fact did not refer to Pahalgam at all. The worst was in Rio de Janeiro, where Mr. Modi was present at the BRICS summit. Once again, the final statement did not condemn Pakistan, and Mr. Modi did sign that statement. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Modi has always considered foreign policy as his forte. He has invested considerable amount of diplomatic capital to project India as a rising power with global outreach. Since 2014, when he came to power, as of July 2025, Mr. Modi has made more than 120 foreign trips to almost 80 countries, which include 10 visits to the US, 8 to France, 7 to Japan, UAE and Russia, 6 to Germany. These visits have cost Indian taxpayer rupees 8,400 crore. Ladies and gentlemen, the Indian foreign policy analysts believe that these visits were more, they served more to project the image of Mr. Modi rather than serving the interests of the country. And then Dr. Jaishankar believes that India is ready to project its influence in a way it has never done so before. The question is it? This is the question which we will be posing to our esteemed guest, Ambassador Salman Bashir, who is a former Foreign Secretary, has served as Pakistan's High Commissioner to New Delhi and Pakistan's Ambassador to China. Sir, welcome to the Ambassador's Lounge.
Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, co-hosting this program with me is Ambassador Riaz Bukhari. Sir, my question to you first is, Mr. Modi, as I said, has invested deeply in establishing relations with world leaders. Yet when the time came when India was looking for support at the Pahalgam or Operation Sindhu, that support was not there. Now, do you think the world now sees how India is using cross-border terrorism as a strategy, while itself it is engaged in transnational terrorism as it was done in Canada, US and even in Pakistan?
Well, yes, I think there is great truth or merit in the way you have put it. I think basically the Indians have, in my understanding, misread the global situation. We know that the global situation is in a flux, but the Indians have tried to keep at bay international law, the UN Charter, rules of morality or norms, and they have actually followed the Israeli model. That is unabashedly something that is condemnable. So I think although India has tried to say that Pahalgam was the work of groups associated with Pakistan, they have, as you rightly said, produced no evidence. And without that, of course, the world sort of ignored the Indian point of view. And it's quite evident actually from the Quad and the other forums. You see, Pakistan itself had condemned the Pahalgam.
Exactly.
So, I mean, you cannot sort of say that a reference to Pahalgam means a victory for India. And as you rightly mentioned, I mean, after having gotten a good beating in the air and also on the ground, now the Indians have been trying their luck at diplomacy. But on the contrary, what has happened is that we have seen a resurgence, in a way, of Pakistani diplomacy. Pakistan's point of view is now acknowledged. Pakistan is right, center, and front in our region. And I think maybe it was fortuitous that this thing has happened, because after quite a long period, about a year plus, where we were sort of disheartened and broken and all that, a lot of things are now happening which are in Pakistan's favor. And I think this is mainly due to the Indian major mistake of taking on Pakistan, losing more than their aircrafts.
So just a clarification here, was it a victory of Pakistan's narrative, Pakistan's diplomacy, or India's failure, or the failure of Indian diplomacy to convince the world of its point of view?
I think it was absolutely clear that the world was not convinced of the Indian viewpoint. Had Indians had some sense, they would have been more deliberate. But this was like a pre-planned thing. And I think, as I said earlier, they tried to follow the Israeli model, what the Israelis have been trying to do, irrespective of international law or UN Charter. They tried to imitate that, and that too poorly. And the result is obvious. They have lost influence, they have lost their stature. Pakistan is now rated as a peer competitor of India, and that is something that is good for us. And I think it was a mistake that the Indians sort of thought that since there was this situation where Pakistanis were too much involved internally, so they misread. They misread the Pakistani scene. They misread the global situation.
Sir, Dr. Jaishankar, Foreign Minister of India, in fact, he is regarded the main architect of Indian foreign policy, which is being pursued by the BJP government. In his book, which was published in 2020, The India Way, he advocates that India no longer needs to conform to norms established by other countries. And then again, he emphasized on his doctrine, which is based on principle of Hindu supremacy and Hindutva preference or policies. How do you see, this policy which is being followed by him will lead to some regional peace, harmony, or it will lead to, conflict in the region?
Well, this is an important point that you raise. I mean, it's a question of how, in what time frame we are looking at a situation. Obviously, the articulation of the thinking by Dr. Jaishankar that they don't really have to care, and that they should do what is in their interest and based on Hindutva principles. So I think this would lead to an endless turmoil in India's neighborhood. The point is that there was this concept of neighborhood first, or India's neighbors should be getting attention. In fact, that whole thing was set aside. It was not actually, even if you not factor in Pakistan, They have suffered major reversals in Bangladesh. They have suffered in terms of their prestige and all that with Sri Lanka. Even with Nepal, their situation is sort of not too good. And this is primarily because of this sort of thinking that is that you have mentioned, the India way. And with Pakistan, of course, I sensed this even during my stay, which was a long time ago, 2012 to 14 in Delhi, that there was an increasing diminishment of desire for talks with Pakistan. And this was a good period otherwise with Prime Minister Manmohan Singh. But the Indians were, because there are these 2 or 3 things that are central to the Indian psyche. One is that they are making rapid progress economically, although we know that almost 60 to 80% of the Indians are below the poverty line. But they have a large population, so of course they have produced a middle class. And then the economy, as it has grown, it is lopsided. The trickle-down effect has not happened. The other thing is that this whole concept of Nehru's tryst with destiny, that India is a major power and a great power and they have to be on the Security Council as a permanent member. So India has acted basically on these lines. And therefore, its relations with Pakistan were, of course, difficult from the beginning. But even with the other countries, it has not given them enough attention. So the results are obvious. So obviously, I am a bit surprised that Jaishankar is still the foreign minister or the external affairs minister. He should have gone home, you know, with the situation as it is. India kept on talking, announcing about its East Asia vision, being a major power in East Asia, and that it was a major power in the Indian Ocean region. And now we see the concept of Indo-Pacific being reversed. Now even the Americans are talking about Asia-Pacific.
Exactly, sir.
So I think these are early small indicators of how it may turn out to be.
Sir, India has long aspired to be acknowledged as leader of the global south. It states that it understands better the issues confronting the global south. Yet when it is on the table with leaders of G7 or G20 or Quad, it speaks their language. It signs their documents. Now, do you think India is well placed to act as a bridge between South and North as a leader, keeping in view the China factor?
Yeah, you mentioned the China factor. I have served in China
You
as
have,
well.
yes.
And I remember very clearly, vividly, that the Chinese they had made tremendous progress. I'm talking of 2005, 2008. And China had become unrecognizable, you know, because if you had been there in the 80s, it was a different scene. But the Chinese, despite their technological progress and the otherwise, you know, the landscape was changing, they would always say that we are a developing country. And, you know, so they were more in line with the thought of the developing world. Now, I have personally some issues with the phrase global south, because, you know, there is no political reality to it. South, if we are looking at it geographically, then south means a lot of countries which are actually quite developed. You know, if you take the ASEAN countries, they are quite developed. Similarly, the Gulf countries are quite developed. So being, you know, it is opportunistic, I think, of India to consider itself to be at the center of global south and to be able to mediate that, and that to be able to then because as you rightly mentioned, they signed on to statements by the G7 and these developed countries. So there is actually no empathy for the plight of the African downtrodden or the Asian downtrodden as far as India is concerned.
And if it also refused to accept or acknowledge the fact that Israel attacked Iran and Hamas in Gaza, it did not support, barring its out few UN resolutions in which it abstained. So it has been very, as you said, it has been indifferent to these, to the sufferings of the countries of the global south.
Well, absolutely. I think it's mirrored more so in the situation between in Gaza and these other places. You know, India has really, as I said earlier, they have come to this conclusion, at least in the minds of Mr. Jaishankar, that international law and all of these other things on which they had said that India qualified no longer matter. So I think it's a tragedy for us because, but again, we are viewing it in the immediate context, maybe in the medium term, but things will change. And I don't know what time it may take for India to develop a more mature view of itself. But unless they come along and respond to the initiatives that we have taken for peace in the region, open-ended, open-minded initiatives, I don't think there is in the near future any good that's going to come.
So that's a very prophetic statement you just said, that India needs to take a maturer view of itself.
Yeah. Mature views
mature
of
view
itself. Okay, that's good. So 2 meetings were held after Pahalgam. 2 important meetings, I must say. One of defense ministers of SCO, and the second foreign ministers of Quad. On both at these 2 forums, Indian narrative was not included in the final statement.
Yeah.
Given that situation in view, how do you see Indian engagements with these 2 organizations in the future?
I think they must be considering all this. I think what they do need to consider is that maybe there is some difficulty with the position that they have taken. Of course, it is the position taken by the BJP apparatchik and Prime Minister Modi. And unless they are able to sort of recognize that it is because of these ill-conceived positions, they may not get any traction. But then there are other basic factors, like being in the Quad is basically, even if they don't say it, but it is like Quad is a configuration basically to contain China.
Yeah.
And of course, there the Indians jump on the US bandwagon, and they say that we are prepared to take charge of our region and of the Indian Ocean and become a net security provider. Now that is a point of view. I think they have to reconcile this with the BRICS membership and the SCO membership, where Russia and China play a predominant role. So I think it's a mixture of number of elements. Of course, as I said earlier, the fundamental thing is that the global situation is in a flux. We have heard that so many times, this phraseology, global situation in a flux. But this time, with President Trump especially, nothing
is real flux.
It is in real flux. Yeah.
So, Quad member states' strategic priorities are different. While the grouping does not constitute a formal military alliance, increased military cooperation like the Malabar naval exercises, it can provoke China. Surely it's viewed, as you yourself said, containment strategy aimed at limiting China's regional power. Now, China knows that. Now, what are China's strategic options?
China Chinese people, I have great respect for them because they think long term. I remember in the 1980s, I was in Geneva and there was a gentleman from the Chinese embassy who said that they wanted to invest in a certain home heating system. And he admitted, he said, because we need the technology for the thermostat. So that's why they were investing. Now, I mean, if you have countries which think 30 years, 50 years ahead, then you cannot beat them. The Chinese position in the world is very clear. They have opted for peaceful cooperation. And I think it appeals to Pakistan and to majority of the countries of the world. And even the Americans, I think, have realized we are not very clear how Trump is going to deal with China. But they are in contact. They have conversations, especially on trade, taking place. So I think all these are elements which indicate that reinforce my point about the volatility of the international situation. And it is very important, especially in such a scenario, to stand on the right side of law and history. Because you can try to imitate the Israelis, but the Israelis will not win in the end. They will lose, and they have already lost a lot of their influence around the world. I mean, to have these verdicts of the ICC, etc.
Exactly.
So, I mean, the whole point is that and if you have the Indians trying to imitate the Israelis, then I can only pity the Indians.
So continuing on this point, now Pakistan, China, Bangladesh, they met. There was a trilateral meeting which was held in June in Kunming. I hope I'm pronouncing this. Yeah. Now, what strategic intent do you see behind this trilateral access? And one must not forget that in May there was Pakistan, Afghanistan, China foreign ministers meeting as well.
Yeah, I think Pakistan, Afghanistan, China forum has existed for some years. And I think it has been a useful place. The Chinese have now reached a point where they can play mediatory roles, resolving differences among, countries. So that has, I think the China-Pakistan, Afghanistan forum, actually at the ministerial level, is really worth investing in seriously. And it is good. I have always talked now for many years about CPEC plus vision, which means extending CPEC beyond the borders of Pakistan to Afghanistan, Central Asia, Iran, etc. So if we are to do this make economy as a strategic priority, then we should be thinking on these lines. So I think all of this is relevant and important. As far as the Bangladesh, Pakistan, China thing is concerned, again, that's a very significant development. These forums, which are essentially trilateral, multilateral, they do convey to the world the importance, at least indicate the thinking of the countries concerned. So I think it brings us then to the future of SAARC.
We will come to that. We will come to that. That is definitely in our mind. So from China's point of view, what is the importance of this? Because there are things in this which were discussed in this which would bring China to India's backyard.
Bring China to India's backyard?
Yes, sir. Bangladesh is still India's backyard.
Yeah, I mean, this is again the way one looks at the situation. Okay. Actually, when SAARC was operational, we we had reached agreements on making Chinese as observers. And we wanted the Chinese to come in a big way as full members. So in the absence of that, of course, these two trilaterals are a small compensation. But it again basically depends on the worth we attach to what we say. If we are serious about making economic development our strategic priority, then we are quite okay by any steps that help to reach that goal.
So staying with this trilateral dialogue involving Bangladesh, Pakistan and China. Do you think, my question is, how provocative is this development for India?
I'm sure they
Because it was widely covered in our media as well as in the
Indian
regional
media,
countries.
Yeah, it would be of concern to them, but it should not be of concern to them. That's what I'm trying to say. Because the way, if you are looking at situations only from a political point of view, then you are assuming, we know that India-China trade is considerable.
Yeah.
It's over 100 billion.
Yes, it's 135 billion.
135 billion. So Pakistan-China trade is no match to India-China trade. Similarly, Japanese-Chinese trade figures are phenomenal. I don't remember, but I think Japan-China trade is probably bigger than the China-India trade.
Okay.
But the point is that the Indians, and we know the history. The history basically, besides the 1964-62 war, the Chinese have made every effort to repair relations with India. They don't want any problems on their southern borders, so they have been very careful. And there was a time when the Chinese and the Indians were meeting, and there were these communiques, the Wuhan Declaration and others, which talked very optimistically about the future. But then came the Modi administration and their actions in Jammu and Kashmir in August 2019, to which the Chinese responded very clearly. You know, to say Aksai Chin is part of India and they alter the maps is no country can accept that. So I think it's basically the Indians have to revisit their present situation in light of the developments at the global level. And I hope that at some point in time they would realize the worth of prospering together with the other countries, instead of just saying that we have now, they have overtaken Germany, or they are close to overtake. So, you know, I mean, just living in these, with these notions is not good enough.
So the dialogue, this trilateral meeting, it discussed eastward expansion of CPEC with Bangladesh infrastructure network. And this, if implemented as we discussed earlier, would bring China very close to India's sensitive areas. This aspect was not mentioned in the joint statement. Now, do you think India, as Riaz also said, should be worried about this thing?
I think India, you know, the present setup there, which is the Indians, I've heard this from the Indian media, that they have put all their eggs in the American basket.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So the point is that if you try to do that, then if the basket starts to wobble, then you may lose everything. But the point is that the Indians have to realize that China has no hegemonic ambition in the region. All it is seeking is good cooperation for economic development, that the BRI and CPEC and all these other initiatives are basically positive aspects of peaceful cooperation, which is the underlying theme, and that the Indians do not have to go out of their way to become enemies of China. I mean, one, of course, they don't have the ability. If they cannot face up to Pakistan, they cannot face up to the Chinese Navy. In the recent, this May thing, we saw that the Indian Vikrant, INS Vikrant, was withdrawn.
Yes, exactly.
So the point is that you cannot even protect your own ships. When I was in Delhi, one fine morning we saw in the papers that the Indian submarine had sunk in the harbor. So, I mean, let's not just exaggerate the importance of military might, and especially if it's not substantiated by the actual stuff, as is evident from the May conflict with Pakistan. So I think the Indians, if they have any sense, they should be rethinking their approach towards Pakistan and the region.
Sir, again on this the trilateral meeting, China had proposed formation of a joint working group to monitor the implementation of the decisions reached. Bangladesh objected to it. Bangladesh opposed it. And it was reported that there was also some differences on issuing of final statement, which Bangladesh did not want. The question is, does Bangladesh want to stick to its policy of non-alignment, or is it that the unelected government was reluctant to take high-stake decisions?
Yeah, this would be a high-stake decision for Bangladesh. But I mean, I don't see any great stakes in it, because if you agree to an implementation mechanism, that makes common sense. But I do not want to prejudge the Bangladeshi thought on this, because they are surrounded by India and they have political issues, as we know. So they are in a better position to. So I think Pakistan and China should try to give as much comfort as they can to the Bangladeshis, so that they are able to participate only to the extent that they wish to.
Sir, coming to SAARC, regional cooperation, which has been made totally non-functional by Modi-led India. Do you think new regional grouping, we talk about the two trilateral, is needed for regional integration that includes China as well?
Absolutely. I think I hope that our foreign ministry would at least be thinking about this.
Okay.
If the SAARC, as we know, has not functioned now for many years, then it's time to either, I know there is the foreign ministry statement strongly supporting SAARC.
Yeah.
But even if the existing SAARC were to remain, there is nothing that could prevent China, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh and other countries from cooperating and actually formalizing that cooperation. So I would strongly urge the government of Pakistan to at least take the initial steps to consider this issue of a Chinese, a South Asian organization with Chinese participation.
And it would be sans India, without India.
We should not make it sans India, but of course, if the Indians continue to behave, then they may not wish
As
to
I
join.
recall, maybe in the past there was some effort to invite China as an observer to the SARC or something like to that.
I think the Chinese were made observers to the SARC.
Yeah, but India perhaps opposed it.
Yeah, and that's why they ran away.
Yeah.
But you know, this whole policy that India is boasting of, being a member of Quad and the Western alliances and being the pivot for Global South, it doesn't make much sense actually. You know, because as we have seen, and the world has seen, that the Indians have lost the facts about their narrative after the May clash with Pakistan.
So, the fourth-day Indo-Pak war has highlighted one fact, that is the emergence of US as a key stabilizing force, a role even China has been unable to assert. To what extent will this deepen US involvement in the region, and how should we, keeping in view our relations with China, align the US engagement with our national priority?
You see, our national priorities demand cooperation and good relations with everybody. So I think with China, of course, we have the best of relations. If the Americans are inclined to be supportive of Pakistan, as they were, even if not supportive, at least objective in terms of the May incidents, then that is something that needs to be welcomed. And so I think for Pakistan, we have to just pursue our own interests, and whoever is willing to play ball with us, we should accept that.
Do we understand the US motives in cultivating Pakistan?
You see, it's very difficult to impute anything in terms of motives to a country. In the present situation, the US policies are basically centered around President Trump's own personal wishes. So one day he says something and the next day he does another thing. So nobody now takes the US policy as serious. So although I think for good reason his statements on the May situation are welcome to Pakistan, but we should not be we should be aware that they may prove to be transitory. So I think as a serious country, we need to, and this should not annoy the Chinese, because the Chinese are themselves trying very hard to manage their relations with the West, and in particular the US. So they should be able to see it, Pakistan's efforts, for what they are really worth. And I think so far so good.
Sir, coming back to Pakistan-India relations again, a ceasefire is still holding, awaiting a formal, agreement. But the President Trump has repeatedly embarrassed the Indian leadership by claiming a role in achieving a ceasefire between India and Pakistan. Now, the public spat, I would say, between Indian leadership and President Trump is going to affect their bilateral relationship. Obviously, it will also affect the Indians' perceived claim of net security provider and bulwark against China. How do you see, Indo-US relations with regard to China after this May conflict between India and Pakistan?
I think even before the conflict, there were some indications that President Trump has a more open view, because there has been some talk of a visit to China. He has an invitation to visit, and I remember in 2017, if I'm not wrong, probably November, they visited China, both Melania and Trump, and Melania stayed back because of she wanted to go to Great Wall and all those places. So I think Trump has basically trade and economy in his mind.
Okay.
He doesn't go by these, the Indian formula for what is called political physics, so I don't think there will be any big issue. But having said that, it's another thing that America, as we all know, has a deep state which has its own agenda, and but it's for them, and it's between Trump and these people, and they need to sort that out. But I think I don't see any big problems as far as China-US relations. There are some indications that things may start to improve a bit.
Okay. And as India as a net security provider in the region and beyond, will it affect?
Net security provider is a cliche. It's become a cliche, but the fact is that the Indians feel happy if somebody terms them as net security provider, and the Westerners are adept at that. When they meet Prime Minister Modi, they sort of try to please him by using these phrases that you are the net security provider. But the fact is that on the ground, the facts are to the contrary, because the Indians, they cannot even deal with Pakistan, and we have a very reasonable position. I must acknowledge that I have, for several months, maybe over 2 years or more, advocated. Maybe I did it in this launch thing also, that we should try to improve our relations with India.
Yes, sir, you did.
But I have now come to the conclusion that at least my generation has failed on both sides of the border. That we are too much indoctrinated to start anew. Bilawal Bhutto Zardari, in his recent interview with Karan Thapar, talks of the generational change in Pakistan and India, and that our generation, he says, can manage. I wish him luck, but the point is that for India and Pakistan, which are geographically linked, the only sensible course is to move ahead and think of some sort of accommodation. And but in the present situation, that doesn't seem to be workable. So I think maybe it will happen someday if India and Pakistan stay the same way. But I hope you understand what I mean, stay the same way, because there are these other forces, superior tendencies, which are at work in both countries.
Sir, at the moment, as of today, there is no high-level official contact between both India and Pakistan. But ceasefire, as I earlier mentioned, it is holding. The major casualty of Pahalgam, terrorist attack, is Indus Water Treaty, which is held in abeyance. Indian narrative on Pahalgam issue, Pahalgam terrorist attack, and on India-Pakistan relationship is under scrutiny at the global level. Imran has just mentioned in detail about that. In this scenario, do you see or do you recommend any way forward to at least restore normalcy between India and Pakistan?
You see, I would have said yes immediately, but over the last few weeks, I have changed my mind, because I have heard people of substance in India taking and saying things which are totally irrelevant.
Okay.
Take the case of Mr. Shashi Tharoor. We knew him very well during our Delhi days. But I was absolutely surprised to see the change that has taken place. Similarly, some former Indian foreign secretaries have been saying things which are still very much in the old, you see, because of the change in the global situation, which are, we hear that, Pakistan is not relevant, Indian policy should be Indo-Pacific, and, I don't want to take the name of the Indian Foreign Secretary who's written an article. But the point is that when people, reasonable people whom we have known, take such a position, then it is only fair for us to also then take this position that we are hostile neighbors. And otherwise, I mean, I am on record having said that even if there is no agreement, we should unilaterally appoint, at least nominate somebody as the High Commissioner.
Yeah.
That would have caused Indians some trouble. But I think now it's best left to Mr. Bilawal Bhutto Zardari's
So this
generation.
tantamounts to hopelessness. Is our relationship in hopeless state?
No, I think in India, Pakistan, this is another very interesting thing. There are situations where we are totally hopeless and then we are very exuberant. So maybe it's that. I mean, I have in my service witnessed various moments where everything was lost, and but then it came back. So maybe it's one of those things, but I can only sort of say it as...
Sir, I have seen you always optimistic in my service. I have served with you as a junior officer. And you have always been very optimistic as far as India-Pakistan relationship is concerned. What is the cause of this pessimism?
Yeah, the cause of this pessimism is this, the Indian attitude.
Okay.
And unless, I mean, it has now become a bit difficult even to relate it, because you see what was given out in terms of US-India was that both are old democracies and all that value-based thing. Now, what's the value of this democracy thing? There is nothing. I mean, so okay, India has elections. So if at some point in time the president government is rejected by the people, then we may have a different situation. But to be realistic, I don't see that happening. I mean, I don't see any change vis-a-vis Pakistan, at least in the near future.
Sir, we wanted to conclude, but things are coming up. So, Khwaja Asif, our defense minister, Bilawal Bhutto, on various occasions they have said that Pakistan at a certain point was training the terrorists. Even President Musharraf is on record of saying these. Now, what India says about us, is there any truth about it? I mean, our leaders say yes. What about the present also now?
No, I mean, our narrative says that in the past, yes, but Pakistan has transformed. We are facing terrorism problem at a much larger scale, and therefore Kashmir has been silent. I mean, minus this Pahalgam, since 2019, nothing big has happened there. So I think, you see, this terrorism story has been there for now 30, 35 years. This was the Indian answer to what we said was self-determination. 9/11 helped on the way. But now the world has moved beyond all this. And so I think this terrorism story is hackneyed.
Okay, sir. Sir, thank you very much. It was Anything more? It was a very illuminating discussion. I hope, we hope rather, that our viewers enjoyed it also, learned something. Ladies and gentlemen, the frailty of India's foreign policy was evident during the Pahalgam attack, when the world, including US, China, Russia, close allies of India, condemned the attack on Pahalgam, but so did Pakistan. But none was ready to condemn Pakistan or name Pakistan for this gruesome act. Similarly, Operation Sindoor, India was hoping that it would garner support. It did not get that support. And the final statements issued at the SCO, Quad, BRICS, it leaves little doubt where India is standing now. Now, since coming into power, Mr. Modi has earnestly endeavored to, number one, isolate Pakistan using cross-border terrorism as a strategy. But the world, I think, now sees that India has long cried wolf over cross-border terrorism, and the world is not ready, or the world is willing to hold India accountable. And then Mr. Modi has always tried to dehyphenate India from Pakistan using power projection and distancing itself from the issues related to Pakistan, and finally to prevent Kashmir from being internationalized. Unfortunately, the Pahalgam false flag operation and Operation Sindoor, they turned out to be a disaster not only for India's image but India's foreign policy. On the other hand, we see China and US recalibrating their foreign policy on Pakistan. President Trump has repeatedly said that he played an active role, an important role in de-escalation between Pakistan and India, and has offered to mediate between the two countries, much to the annoyance and anger of the Indians. And US Central Command Chief General Kurrell described Pakistan as a phenomenal partner in the counter-terrorism world. Now, relations between Russia and Pakistan are also improving, and there are positive prospects. Ladies and gentlemen, India's neighborhood diplomacy, which was once considered as a cornerstone of its foreign policy, has also seen serious setbacks, like in Bangladesh, and it faces structural and execution challenges. Thank you for watching Ambassador's Lounge. Please subscribe to our channel, and we will be back.